The prey was still scampering like mice. The lion was finally unchained, and the silent chill breathed its own down signal the corridors of the lounge. The hunt had begun, and along with it, a feverish cold was invading the building. Each window of the lounge frosted over while networks of water pipes froze and cracked under the pressure. It's getting really cold in here, Dwayne said with a shaky breath, trying to preserve the heat within his fur. The security room that acted as his temporary prison had severely dipping into uncomfortable temperatures. Everest's voice came through to his collar. Is it? My fur is thicker than yours, I can tell. Why isn't the heat on? It should be, his companion muttered, befuddled by the situation. I'll figure it out later. Just concentrate, please. It seemed like a frivolous complaint. They were in the middle of the snowy mountains. Why wouldn't it be cold? Everest shrugged off the detail, but Dwayne couldn't put the notion past him. It refused to leave his mind, lingering like a pair of eyes, staring back at his head. Something was wrong, something intentional, but his mind blanked on any way to put it into words. Right, the Dane shivered, looking off the list he kept nearby. There are 5 phones on the ground floor, one in the lobby, which is now broken, came the dejected voice of his companion. One at the far left at the equipment storage, the far right one at that big place, and one in the back room, he read off the list. Which one? It doesn't say. Awesome. Guess I'll be improvising all this as I go along, Everest said with a notable sneer. Is that a thing is still in far left? Quickly hitting the buttons and swapping the camera's feeds, the biker squinted at the age screen, his exhausted expressions illuminated by its glow. It is, he said, voice faltering as the creature's red brightened shape appeared in the thermo feed. Then I'm moving. Curious, Dwayne swapped out the camera control with a push of a button, accessing a different feed. An image of an empty hallway was presented before him, lifelessly echoing the rickets of the building through its passage. After a few seconds, Everest slowly crept into view off the camera, and he watched her creep down the path in fascination. I could see you. He watched the husky suddenly stop moving, only to turn around and flash the camera with an irritated glare, realizing his futile attempt at small talk was only making things worse. Dwayne sighed and switched back to watch the creature. Don't watch me, you idiot, Everest hissed through the radio. I can't tell you where I am. Okay, sorry. The Dane had to restrain himself from growling. I'm just trying to keep calm. Looking at this thing is making me anxious. The husky's voice filled with annoyance. I hate to tell you this, Dwayne, but we're currently in a situation where you'll just have to make do. Now tell me where the creature is. Fine, he frowned and muttered under his breath. You don't have to be bossy about it. Swapping back to the feed, he noticed immediately that the giant red beacon that labeled the creature was absent. Alarm flared in his mind, his posture spiking up like an electric shock that jolted him. Frantically, he took the controls. Wait, Everest, it moved. What? Where? He stammered, tripling over his own words. Give me a moment. His paws smacked off the buttons, and rapidly cycling through the camera feeds. His panicked eyes searched for the unmistakable heat signature. A hallway? Nothing. Another hallway? Nothing. Another darker corridor with windows? Nothing. The upstairs landing? Nothing. The lobby? A noticeable glaze of frost, but no sign of the creature. Everest seems to sense panic over the radio. Dwayne, where is it? I need to know. Her voice was breaking. Her breath was coming out as rapid churns, as if she were fearful, running in all directions. I said give me a moment, the Dane said, already going back through the cameras he'd already seen. It's gone. With a distant screech of scratching metal floated around in his ears, he too was lost in the distraction just to hear it. Just call any of them, he said desperately, trying not to noticing the metal-coated scampering was getting louder. Was it truly gone? In his panic, he had gone through the cameras so many times, he may as well have seen dozens of times. Shaking in his seat, Dwayne tapped his sweating paws on the table sporadically. Maybe it left? Maybe it just went out into the snow. A weak laugh left him, a meek attempt to ease his fears. Maybe Maybe everything's okay. Then he heard it. Dwayne stopped, his ears picking up sound, becoming progressively louder. A distant echo forming metal was filling the room, prompting his puzzled eyes to look around. Nothing in the room had changed, nor was changing. Was it all in his head? Dwayne? Everest called out to him through the connected line. His heart beating picked up. Dwayne nervously jumped down from the chair, erratically scanning every corner of the room. A frozen chill went down his spine, intensified by the winter air pumping from the vent above him. His pads stung to the floor, his bare skin reacting to the frost-coated tiles. Rapid puffs of breath were visible in the air. The Dane was hyperventilating as fear climbed his skin. The metallic noise became louder, closer. Dwayne! Everest called again. It was all in his head, just in his head. Everything is okay, he squeaked, his voice barely an octave above whisper. Everything, his legs were trembling, is a terrible feeling coursed through him to the bone. Okay? Dwayne slowly looked up at the gate to darkness that had been looming above him all this time. The ceiling vents singing footstep-like echoes. His eyes widened at the sight, paralysis locking him in place as if the frozen cold had him over. Thinking on impulse, Dwayne snapped out of it and jumped for the first thing he saw, heart beating as it soon leapt out of his chest. The dog jumped into the storage cabinet and shut the door on himself. There was probably a better place in this room to go, but static had invested in his mind, his clouded his thinking. The sound approached, stopping at the mouth of the vent. A loud leopard-like snarl tore through the air as the creature pressed its limbs into the sides of duct, steadying its perch. A vile popping noise clicked off the walls, mixing with a lever-like screeching. A loud voice continued to echo out of his radio. Hey, Dwayne, answer me, for Christ's sakes. Blood running cold, the Dane swiftly shut off his collar, terminating the connection before it became a screaming beacon for the threat above. Silence graced the room, broken only by tapping claws lowering onto the floor. He could be seen everything, yet he saw nothing. Dwayne stood petrified in the cabinet, staring at the slitted door in the room. There were only mere seconds from death as he opened the doors, ripped out its contents, and closed himself into a claustrophobic walls. Pressed as far to the back of the storage cabinet as he could. Dwayne's heart pumped so fast it feared it would burst. Not an inch of the room changed, still appearing as empty as it had been when he first entered. Except for the 4 large footprints now formed on the tile, the heat of the formless creature melting the ice under it. A single cloud of breath appeared in the center of the room, puffing out from seemingly nothing. The silence had become deafening. It almost felt as if time had stopped in an instant. The footsteps moved, patrolling around them, with them contained, precise movements. The sounds of scratching bone and metal clawed along the wall as the shape moved about, its tails leaving marks on the metal. Where the hell was it at? Was it on the floor, or crawling on the walls and ceiling like a roach? Was it on the table or cabinets, crawling along the machines with its tails dragging on the tile? The air in front of him emitted a gator-like snarl, incrementously mixing with the metallic scratching along the floor. Dwayne's vision seemed to pulse with a twist in his chest, his own heartbeat beginning to travel up his neck. He pressed himself so forcefully onto the back wall, his bones ached from the force. A morbid language filled the air, low, billowing, caressing up the walls, fading through his ears. A sharp growl hissed out, a scraping claws edged onto the wall, the creature dragging itself up the vent. The echoing pound of metal sounded above, then quickly scampered away back to the Skeege lounge until it faded out entirely. The creature had left. Dwayne didn't move from his hind place until he was sure the creature had left, made it difficult by rapid paranoia, jerking his mind into thinking the threat was still around. He counted to 10, then meekly pushed open the cabinet door with his nose. He shakily flicked his collar on, pleading Everest wouldn't be furious with him. You there? He said weakly, climbing back up to the monitors. Dwayne, what in God's name was that? His companion snapped, although still keeping her voice low. I thought it got you. It almost did. It came from the vent. I barely had time to hide. Lord, Everest breathed. Well, you're alive now, and I need you. Now where the hell is it at? Shaking its head of his nerves, Dwayne swallowed his fears and mustered up every scrap of courage he had. The snapping of his companion somehow hurt him even more than being in the presence of death. Ignoring the piercing sting in his heart, he accessed the monitors and continued to rely on her information. The biting cold of the room was begging for attention, coating his fur in shining frost. He felt his body slow down slightly, suffering immense shivers from the freeze in temperature. I'll find it, he muttered, his voice trembling from the cold. Everest peeked around the corner, eyeing to the lobby that certainly didn't look like the way it did before. Dwayne had already had a close call with the creature, as did she. It had reappeared in the lobby just minutes later, fortunately spotted by her companion's sudden usefulness. With seconds to act, Everest called the phone in the west hallway, prompting to a annoying ring echo down its corridor. The creature was swift to react as he swiftly heard its scratchy movement travel away. He hadn't noticed it before, but the more she traversed the ski lounge, the more she became aware that something had changed. Entering the lobby, Everest felt an odd feeling stung the bottom of her paws, briefly looking away from her destination. The north hallway, she realized with the peak of her ears, the new presence she hadn't addressed before. Pure, beautiful frost was glistening the tile floor, reflecting the light and providing the irritating sting as it met her paws. It may as well have been the entire sheet of ice, glazing over every surface it met. The lobby windows were fogged over, and the fake plants Jake purchased to beautify the room encoded small icicles, and the air was uncomfortably freezing. Her breath was almost completely visible, puffing from her muzzle into the chilling atmosphere. A creaking groan echoed throughout the building, sounding of sagging wood and weakening foundation. Everest looked around for the source but couldn't see anything. She was about to walk forward when the groan came again, this time emitting from the walls. She flashed an odd look of the frost-covered surfaces, wondering if the lounge was shifting from the snow. This isn't normal, she said with a shiver, even as the fur of the winter-bred husky was struggling to keep the cold out of its magnitude. Dwayne, are you okay to come down there? A weak voice came from his collar. Fine. His reply did little to quell Everest's fears. The fur of the Great Dane's fur was nowhere near insulated enough for such environments, and worries for his health plagued her. Traveling carefully and fast enough to dodge the walking death in the hallways, yet slow enough not to slip on the ice, Everest shuffled forward. If you could try to find a coat or something down there, she whispered. A blanket even. That would work too. Don't you want me to watch the cameras though? Well, yeah, but... Everest paused, searching for the words. Just try to find something warm for you, okay? I'll look. The path to the safe room was only a jagged line at most. A few twists and turns here and there. She had arrived before long. She hastened her step as she entered the hallway, approaching the right turn. Where is it? She asked. A sudden moan emitted from the walls, whispering the cracking of wood and weakened metal. It made the husky jump, facing the wall with flattened ears. What the hell was that sound? That wasn't the creature, that was something entirely different coming from the building. It was a few seconds later before Dwayne answered. It's moving around upstairs, he said, obviously trying to hide his shivering voice. Also, I just noticed something. Literally all the windows upstairs are broken. What? The husky stared out in surprise, her mind taken away from the odd noises. Why? How long have they been that way? Given all the snow that's piling in the bedroom, probably a few hours. Everest shrugged off the thought, knowing that there were more important things right now. Tell me if it moves or goes into the vents. Knowing the danger was far, Everest let herself accelerate slightly. Turning on the corner of the path, she came to a paralyzing scene that stopped her in her tracks. The entire corridor was completely frozen over, the walls and the floor shining with ice, and the ceiling littered with sharpened icicles threatening hanging above. Some of the ceiling panels had detached and fallen to the floor, allowing ice to travel on into the walls. Lurking through every corner of the ski lounge, the vent in the middle of the hallways was breathing with chilly air, further encapsulating the area in snow. The entire building was slowly freezing over, a revelation that made Everest's heart sink. For years she had loved the cold, flockered and lived within it, and made up every aspect of it in her life. The winter had turned on her, shrouding the ski lounge and holding her friend hostage. If that creature didn't kill them, the cold would certainly do. "Dwayne, it's going downhill here," she said, nervously looking around the ice and trudged down it. Walking under the icicles was racking her nerves, each one gleefully appearing as they were mere seconds from dislodging. A creaking hiss sounded from above, intentionally sending a surge of panic in the husky. Assuming the creature was nearby, frantically looking around for the threat, the noise sounded again, only this time a weakened creaking followed it. That confound noise again, and of course, Everest fought with agitation. It came from above. The husky craned her head, expecting to see a vent opening or something terrible about to pounce from above. She only saw the ceiling, nothing but frosted surface. A ceiling that was sagging downwards, flicks of water dripping through it. Everest spiked in fear and alarm. "Oh shit!" With all the reaction she could muster, she leapt backward as quickly as she could, just as the ceiling fractured from the excessive weight above. It tore open like paper, caving in an avalanche of snow, frozen water, and a booming crash. "Ah!" Everest yelled in surprise as she was about bowled over by an assault wind of snow. She was knocked away as if her body was made of sticks. The sheer force of frozen nature strong enough to tear through the lounge. It all collapsed to the floor in a powerful crash. Shredded debris hit the ground first, smashing into dust and metal pieces on impact, only to instantly get buried under this onslaught of frozen slush. Snow erupted in all directions as it coated the hallway in beautiful white. Through the freshly created hole in the ceiling, the upstairs bedroom was visible, along with every shattered window inside it. The winter had invaded through the broken walls, building up inside the bedroom until the floor simply couldn't hold it up anymore. The lounge had struggled to stand against the blizzard, causing the creaking groans to emit it from its foundation. Its walls and ceilings cracked and moaned with their hopeless battle, ice leaching along their inner workings and burying into their supports. It tried with every fiber of its being to stand up from the cold, only for its integrity to finally give up. The first ceiling had finally crashed in, a symbol of incoming devastation. "Ugh!" was the grunt forced from the dog as she rolled to a stop. A sheet of frost glazed her in seconds, ice leaching down the floor like a white infection. The temperature plummeted in mere seconds, even lower than it had been before. She pushed herself up, her fur cracking as she formed the ice broke from the motion. "Dwayne!" "The ceiling caved down here," she yelled into her collar, holding up her paw to shield her from the wind. "Can you get through?" I can try." "Everest, we don't have much time." Dwayne's terrified voice came through. "I can see the temperature reading on the monitors. We need to get to Jake fast." "What? Why?" "The cold is breaking down my cameras," the Dane cried. "The one in the north hallway froze over, and the whole building could get shut down at this rate. We'll be powerless against the creature." Everest couldn't get a word as the powerful gust of wind traveled from outside, buffeting her face and glazing her in ice. The winter was merciless. It only needed a little while to completely solidify the whole building in ice, calling upon the final hour to shut down all the power in the systems. Everest and Dwayne were concerned. The realization that hit them both at once. Both creatures and the winter stared down at them with menacing grins. They only had a short window of time to get Jake out of the safe room before the frozen fate doomed them all. I won't let," the husky struggled to get out. "Him down." A violent rumble of vibration took the ski lounge, of an echoing of splitting wood and crashing metal bellowed from throughout the corridors. "Dwayne, what the hell was that?" Everest shouted into her collar, trying to trudge through the snow-infested hallway. Her companion responded with a shaky voice. "I saw it on the cameras. 3 rooms upstairs just collapsed in the blizzard. Everest, it's not safe to be here." "Like hell, I'm not leaving my owner." She almost had to scream over the roaring wind. Her paws got numb as they were dipped in frozen slush. "I'll get him out of there if I have to drag him through the ice. This is what huskies are made for." The snow was coming up to her chin as she moved. "Where's the monster?" Dwayne replied with a stutter. "It's in the lobby. Wait, I think..." It looks like the walls are moving in there. What? Throughout the lounge, the water pipes within the walls were helpless against the freeze. The metal began to cool until the temperature dipped beyond what they can handle. The rushing water inside gradually slowed to a stop, freezing into long segments of ice that built tremendous pressure on the pipes. The radiators on the floor courageously making her last stand against the cold of what little heat they had. They were mortally crippled when their water intake stopped. All the pipes in the building froze until the pipes were completely solid. The water pressure expanded into thousands until the pipes simply couldn't take it anymore. Fracturing all at once in the chorus of frozen agony, plaster and flecks of paint shot forward as holes tore through the walls. Water spraying like uncontrollable fire hoses into the hallways and rooms. The sudden water latched onto the ice that already coated the areas, freezing over and multiplying the winter's attack in mere seconds. Dozens of walls were splashed with icy water, cutting into the foundation like cavities, weakening its supports. How trivial in that would take only a few broken windows to invite the blizzard inside, dooming the lounge to an unescapable fate. Dwayne saw everything happen on the cameras. That few remained intact. Once the water broke through, it was becoming difficult for him to move. The freezing cold attacking him in all directions as his body temperature plummeted. His heart sank with hopeless gaze as he watched the screens, walls snapping through like glass while the upstairs floor crumbled under ice and snow. The glistening light of the frost reflected on his face, painting his horrified expression in the sparkling lights, glittering victoriously as the building fell to nature's might. Everest refused to surrender the cold, gritting her frost-covered teeth as she pushed through the cutting blizzard. Jake wasn't far now. She knew in her heart that she could make it. The winter was supposed to be nothing to her. She was a husky. Dogs bred specifically for the snow. If there was any time to prove herself, it was now. Determination increased her pace. The puppy pushing through the ice and attempted her coat and limbs. Jake was leaving here, alive, and the safe room was the only logical place he could be. True owners never abandoned their dogs, and they shared a bond unlike any other. Fighting for the snow, Everest charged into the blizzard.
What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, stay pretty.